Welcome. This is the first video in our series to demonstrate how we used Audacity to mix an Irish history lesson, our first CD for Irish Thunder Pipes and Drums. So what we're going to do here is we're going to actually bring in a tune and we're going to mix it. But before we do that, I want to show you a couple little shortcuts that might help you out as we do this. So one of the first thing is if you're on a Windows machine, Windows 10, and I believe Windows 7 also does this, we're going to be opening files a lot. So one of the things that that Microsoft has is this quick access menu. So if you click on quick access, here you can come in and you can go in and say, I want to put one of these folders into the quick access menu. So if I go to my PC, I come over here. If you follow the directions of the document that I have from the website, we talk about uploading a CD uploading a zip file that allows you to unzip it on your machine, and there'll be some demo sound files on there, and it should be Irish Thunder CD tutorial. That will be the name of the file. So that file we're going to be going to a lot, or that folder. So I'm immediately going to do pin to quick access, okay? And now anytime I go into quick access, if I want, I should be able to see it here somewhere. There it is right there, okay? All right. I have been doing a lot of these presentations and mixing these, so some of these files you're not going to have, but one of the ones you will have is right there is Irish 1. And Irish 1 was project 27 and 28. This particular file contains pipes and drums. This one contains pipes. So let's go in, click, and there they are. All right? So now, how do I open them? What do I do? So the first thing I want to do is say File, Import. So I'm going to import audio into the project. So here we go, Irish 1, Project, Audio. I'm going to highlight all of these, and I'm going to say Open. And you can see what Audacity is doing. It's opening each one of these files. Now, I've looked at this a million times, so I know what this is. This is bagpipes up here. This is the pipe major. This is me with a couple of guys on the other microphone, and this is the pipe major with a couple of guys on the mic with him. Below that are our snare drummers. Here's our snare drummers. We actually only had two sets of snare drummers. I think there were 4 snare drummers there altogether. But we also had 2 mics. One at the top. These guys here, this one and this one, were positioned at the top. If you look at some of the pictures, you might even be able to see those. And then the ones below it were actually at the bottom. Now, we thought that we would think that that was good and it was nice and it sounded good. In fact, I didn't like it, so I'm getting rid of those. So I'm just going to delete them. I'm just going to take them out of there because I really didn't like those guys. So that's that one and that one. Okay? So what I'm left with is the 2 that were the drums over the top of the heads of the drums. Down at the bottom here is my bass drum. So now let's just listen to this track and see what it sounds like. Okay. You could hear the pipe major say by the right quick march. There it is, right there. Now what I'm going to do here is show you what we can do. I'm going to take an effect, amplify. I'm not going to make any changes here, and I'm going to open this all the way up. So you can see.
All right, quick march.
All right. Eventually we're going to remove all of that, but for helping us sync things up, we're going to use that. Now in this case what happened was we recorded the pipes as a track. In fact, we also recorded 28. We could have recorded 29. We could record 30. I suggest you're going to get as many of these down there as you can, because the more the better. You can throw out things you don't like. And then what we did is we rewound it on the Zoom R16, and then we played it back, and all of the drummers had headphones, and they could hear the pipe major call by the right quick march. And then they just started to play. So the bagpipes really lends itself to this kind of production. And then after we recorded 27, we could open up file 28. We had bagpipes there, they could play it, and because everybody's too syncing to the beat, we should be fine. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in that other project, 28. So I'm going to say File, Import, Audio. Let's see, we back up here. Audio. Oops, my mistake. Back up, back up. Project 28, Audio. I'm bringing these two guys in. Okay, so here we have it. Now you'll notice that these are offset from the other drums. That's because when we recorded them, they weren't, this was pipes being recorded. They didn't listen to the other set of pipes. Okay, they simply were recorded as a new project. So there was no way to have a reference. They still could hear the metronome in the headsets from the recorder, but they're off shifted. So somehow we have to sync these up with this project. So let's see how we're going to do that. Well, right away, one of the things, if you read the document, you'll know that I put in a shortcut for moving these things up and down. If I didn't do that, I could just say select move track up, right? Or I could say move track to top. But it gets to be a pain to do that. So what I did is I put in a hotkey. So Alt and the up arrow moves it up. I'm just hitting it a bunch of times and it's going to the top. Alt, up arrow. You're going to use that a lot. If you had any experience like me, you're going to use that a lot. So now what we have is we have the drum major. You can look at these two waveforms and they look very similar. And then you have the other drummers are similar to that. So now the problem is we have to take this guy and sync it to this guy. So I believe this is by the right quick march again. So I'm going to say Effect, Amplify. Now this by the right quick march is not the same as this because this was recorded differently. And so what I'm going to do, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two guys. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit bigger. And I'm going to delete. Now notice they're both in sync here, and I'm deleting the same amount from both. Okay? Now why did I do that? I did that because now I can take this guy and sync it up. Right? So I'm going to look here. Sync that guy up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now that that's somewhat in sync, I'm going to take this guy and just move him over. See what happens when these two come close to each other? They automatically kind of lock. And that says to me, you're locked. And because these two were recorded at the same time, this is now in as good a sync as this one, which looks pretty good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solo just these guys. And we're going to hit play. That sounds good. Okay, so so the next thing we want to do is we want to start fooling around with bringing in our drummers. So okay, if we want to bring in our drummers, what we can do is we can turn solo off on everybody. And now everybody's live. All right? So here we go. Here come our drummers.
Just keep going. By the right, quick, march.
Okay, so what's going on up here? I want you to watch what's going up on here as we play. This is showing you the relative level setting of each one of these tracks all mixed together. Okay? We're going to call that mixing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what this does is this is what you're going to use to determine what it's going to sound like. Okay? Now, one of the things that we can also do here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this track and I'm going to move this guy down, Alt arrow. One of the things we can do is we can turn this into a stereo track. So I can come in here, for example, and say, well, let's do this. Let's listen to just these two guys, right? Let's hear it. All right? Now let's listen to that as if it was converted into a stereo track. Now, if you're listening to this lesson on headsets, you would have heard that one of the tracks was to the left, the other one was to the right. And that's because these were physically recorded in two different places. Okay, one to the left, one to the right. The system doesn't know that, but the system got it right. The system said, okay, the top track is going to be on the left, the bottom track is going to be on the right. So you can force these into a stereo situation by doing that. And it also turns out that with the bagpipes, sometimes it sounds a little bit mellower by doing that. It's not as harsh. It's up to you. Play with it, experiment with it. The other thing you can do is you can say, you know what, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to take this, and by the way, I can hit Control Z to back me out. There I am, I'm backed out. If you keep hitting it, things are going to change, so be careful. So now I've backed it out. I want to say, you know what, I want to take my pipe major and put him 30 to the left, and take the other guy and put him 30 to the right. Now, why would you do that? Well, one of the interesting things I've always wanted to hear was when you went into seconds, what would be cool is if the seconds moved to the side of where the seconds player was. I know that goes against what everybody wants to do. I just think it sounds cool. So I'm going to play this now with one guy to the right and one guy to the left. Turns out when I'm listening to it now, it didn't sound that far apart. So I'm going to move it even more. I'm going to make me 60% over to one side and 60% over to the other. Okay, this is called pan control. Here we go. That time I heard it. Okay? Now, you can't take that and then make it stereo here because it'll ignore the pan controls. But this gives you the ability to kind of move the drums around, make it feel like there's space there. Okay? So I'm going to turn this off because when I go build this track, it's going to turn this all into stereo anyway. So I'm not going to worry about it for now for too much. But it gives you a lot of control and a lot of flexibility. Okay? So now we'll move on to the next lesson. Okay. What you're going to want to do now is save this. You're going to want to save this as a project. So I'm going to say File, Save Project As. I'm going to come back here. This was stuff that I had there before, so we're going to create a new one. I'm going to create a new thing called New Folder PROJ. Excuse me. Minstrel Boy, M-I-N-S-T-R-E-L, boy. Okay. And then down here, you're going to see why I'm going to do this in a minute. I'm going to put 001, M-I-N-S-T-S-T-R-L, boy. Be nice if I could spell. Now, why am I doing this? So, the reason I'm doing this is now I have a project that has everything mixed in called Basic Sync. This up here is the data for this project, okay? And all of this means is this is everything frozen to the Basic Sync. So as I go forward and I keep making enhancements, the next one will be 002 and it'll be Minstrel Boy something else. And 003, Minstrel Boy something else. I'll keep making enhancements. The problem with Audacity, it doesn't remember your corrections or changes. It as soon as you save it to a file, it's in stone now, and you can't back those out. So by having many of these smaller files, you're able to keep minute changes so that you can go back to a project and pick up from where you left off if you have a wholesale change you want to make. Okay? So now we'll move on to the next topic.